speakers and also our moderator. So our first speaker is Krishnan Megani. He is the Director of Software Development, Hexagon Capability Center, India. Sir is experienced technical and business leadership with a demonstrated history of working in the computer software industry. Sir has a strong business development professional skilled in Scrum recruitment analysis, agile methodologies, and agile project management. We welcome you, sir.
And thank you very much.
The next speaker is Tarun Goyal. Sir is a senior analytics, artificial intelligence, big data, and management consulting professional with 14 plus years of track record in delivering quantifiable financial and operational impact through advanced analytics and data-driven solutions. Sir is extensive experience in solving diverse business problems for banking, insurance, healthcare providers, retail, and CPG clients by leveraging optimal blend of domain understanding, sector expertise, and machine learning. We welcome you, sir. So,
thank you.
The next speaker is Revin Kaur. Sir is currently leading analytics and product for the acquisition and distribution business in the product ecosystem in EdTech. Sir has a previous experience working with McKinsey, Accenture, and MU Sigma. And his specialties includes analytics, vision, and strategy, product and business analytics, product management, general management, team building, and hiring. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much.
And the next speaker is Abhishek Trignai. Sir is Global CXO and Managing Partner. As GS Global CTO and CPO and the member of a SWAP board, he leads the product and technology group at GS. Sir is a creating market differentiation by spearheading technology, innovations, and leading product strategy. He also manages global product and services teams. He also leads global innovation programs like Quest strategic vendor relationships, firm acquisitions, and major technology initiatives, helping to shape the future of the firm. And also he specializes and has successfully led firms through digital transformation initiatives. We welcome you, sir. And so the next, we want to introduce about our moderator of the day. So Dr. Pradeep Kumar Dadabada, he had done his PhD in the Institute for Development and Research in Banking Technology. Sir also worked as a senior data scientist and senior machine learning scientist. He trained nearly 50 plus aspiring data scientists at institutions such as Humaticus Learning and Silicon Guru. He also trained various bank managers and various level of bank employees in the customized programs in CRM and analytics at IRDBT. And also he's recognized as one of the top most prominent data analytics and data scientist academicians in 2019 by Analytics Magazine India. So now I request Namrata to take over and explain about the overview of BLS thing.
Information is the oil of 21st century and analytics is the combustion engine. Good evening, one and all. Coherently agreeing with Peter Sondengard, we, the Systems and Analytics Club, hereby bring to you today's topic of discussion and tomorrow's reality. Data-driven evolution of the business world over the decade and the future scenario of business analytics. With technology trickling into every aspect of our lives, data analytics has emerged as one of the most prevalent technologies over the decade. It has been used in multitude of initiatives, not only to drive business strategies, but also solve some of humankind's most pressing issues. This is an unfathomable amount of data being generated by businesses and consumers each day. Choosing to mobilize this data to enhance business processes is what we aim to do, but eventually every single aspect of our lives will be affected by this data. Analytics offers a real-time view into a business which allows monitoring shifting trends and key performance indicators, which we also call KPIs, in the real time. Data segmentation allows a business to be dissected, covering all demographics such as location, age, range, shopping habits, internet habits, and what products are used. Grouping this data means they can directly target specific groups that appeal to their individual needs and interests. Given the scope of horizons in which it has been used, data is slowly being unified into public sectors by private organizations and is becoming vital to decision making. With mobile phones and access to the internet becoming quite common, the public sector itself generates a colossal amount of data in education, employment, agriculture, and manufacturing. Furthermore, analytics is set to influence the business through industrial efficiency in every process positively. Data analytics is ultimately set to take the lead in a multitude of business aspects such as research, sales, production, and business planning, ergo leading to a new industrial revolution. The technology has some substantial opportunities and the capability to uncover profound insight to offer when explored. In discussion with our esteemed speakers today, we hope to learn about the first-hand challenges that the industry overcame over the decade by leveraging data analytics and what are the value learnings in the path of digital transformations. Further, we would like to focus on the future scope of analytics in accelerating the market growth in various sectors of the country. Now, I would request Dr. Pradeep to take the floor. Thank you.
Good evening, one and all. I'm very glad to meet you like this. As the topic is given, the data-driven evolution of business over the decade and the future scenario of business analytics. So I request all the esteemed panel speakers, one after another, please try to introduce the topic, at least first we'll focus on data-driven evolution of business over the decade. That is, for some times we'll talk about, and later we will concentrate upon major on future scenario of business analytics. We'll talk about that. Hopefully, first I'll start. Every panel speaker is requested to speak over the topic at least 5 to 10 minutes of your opening remarks. Then after then we'll discuss over that, and then we'll talk about the future scenario of business analytics so that we can conclude fruitfully. Right. So over to you, sir. I'll start with the Krishan, sir. Can you please?
Yeah, thanks, Pradeep. And allow me to say thank you to the IIM Shillong for giving me an opportunity to be part of this panel. Allow me to also welcome my co-panelists, Mr. Abhishek, Mr. Tarun, and Mr. Revin, where I think I will be also learning from them, or also will be able to share a part of my experience towards the subject, which we have been working on. So I have made a small, presentation. So I would like to share that and talk about the context so that I think we can take it from there. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Again, thank you very much. I think today we are basically talking about data-driven world and how it has been impacting our life for over the decade, and how we see data-driven world is going to take us in the future. So I think so what makes data analytics relevant today actually? So what is so special over the last decade, which was not possible earlier? Definitely. You can see the data analytics, which itself is made of 2 words. So obviously data is the key actually. So where are we getting the data actually? So I think a lot of data is getting generated by various applications like Swiggy, Facebook. It's offering deliberately the free services so that we can go ahead and do kind of a social networking over there and get the data from us. Instagram is another application. YouTube actually, massive video data getting generated over YouTube. Twitter, I think everybody's nowadays wants to tweet actually. So impact of one tweet from one part of the world is seen in the other part of the world. IoT sensors for the manufacturing and the other things which makes our lifestyle pretty easy actually. And not only data, right? I think we also need to understand just collecting data is not enough. We need to have the platform where we can process this data. So nowadays, I think all these public cloud platforms have come which offers say storage as well as the computing in a very cheap way. I think just some statistics on the data being collected. So YouTube has actually 2 billion monthly users with and 800 million daily active users. 500 hours of video is uploaded per minute on YouTube. Twitter has around 145 million daily active users, and with 500 million tweets gets generated per day. Instagram has 500 million daily users with 1,000 photos generated or uploaded per second. Facebook has around 1.84 billion daily users with 184 million uploading photos and text. Swiggy clocks around 1.4 million food order daily. Netflix has 200 million subscribers watching with 164 million hours per day being watched. So I think just collecting the data is not enough. I think we also need to have good computing power and the new set of algorithms which has made the data analytics possible, which may not be possible maybe a couple of decades before. The power of data is such that earlier we used to say business houses will establish the factories, but now the business solutions are moving towards the digital platform. Let us take the example of Amazon. Amazon is in the retail, but they don't have stores actually. Big Basket is in groceries, but they don't have the stores. They actually just collect the from the aggregators and provides the good deliveries actually. We have the fintech companies now with no physical banks. Netflix, but there's a Netflix, but they don't lay down the cables actually. Airbnb offering new way of hospitality without building the hotels. I think LinkedIn, Facebook, and they are deliberately offering the free services so the data collection can be done by them and our behavior and analytics can be done by them actually and offering us the different kinds of services. Telemetry data can capture the driving behavior and which can be directly linked to the insurance. IoT data, light fixtures, saving energy, and so on actually. I think power of the data can be analyzed from the fact that we have a group of companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, they have very well established, have one league of companies, but another league of companies which is emerging because of the data and the analytics like Pair, Flipkart, Airbnb, Snapchat, and so on. So if you look into the changing faces of industries from the data today, so I think a lot of services are being offered based upon the location-based data, like an offering from the Uber, which they connect the drivers and the people who wants to use those driving services and so on, resulting in the saving the time and the fuel and a lot of comfort actually. Retail transaction data, behavioral data from the consumers driven companies like Amazon, Flipkart, they try to understand our behavior and the kind of a transaction we are doing it so that they can sell the cross additional products to us actually. Manufacturing, all the factories or the complete production and the processes are getting digitized and the sensor driven data for the analytics and the decisions. Definitely in the public sector also for the reducing the fraud and the Aadhaar-based subsidy, actually improving the tax collection. Agencies moving online for the better services. Health data is being used by the pharma companies for the drug discoveries and innovation. If I understand today itself, we are having the shortage of the talent. Even the universities adding the new programs. Organization finding difficult to retain actually. So if you look at the coming future, there will be big need of the data science, not only the data science, the business translators who can understand this data science. And obviously, I think once we are collecting the data, I think so much data can be only understood if it is visualized properly. So I think from our organization, perspective, mostly we are doing a lot of AI work actually, where we would like to digitize the old drawings which are created in 1950s, 60s, and digitize the brownfield plant by scanning the data and making the plants intelligence actually. this is one of the say the plant which you can see on the screen. Actually, this is generated by our AI application. So another areas of application where we are now mostly focusing is now, can we do that some kind of a document classification and the document matching for our business work processes. Basically, we are in the CAD/CAM and the industry domain, where I think document handover from one party to the other party is very, very important. If you just hand over the document just like that, it doesn't make any sense. But if you hand over them in a very classified way, and it makes a lot of sense for. So I think with this I think and I would like to say again thank you from my side. So luckily, I think we also have some patent generated as a result of our work in last 2.5 years. Yeah, thanks, Pradeep.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Krishnan, sir. Now we would love to listen to from Abhishek, sir. Can you be?
Thank you. First of all, again, extreme gratitude to the student fraternity and to you, Professor Pradeep, as well, for the good welcome, and to the fellow panelists as well. Always amazing to be in good company and learn along the way. So thank you for the invite. I haven't prepared any presentation per se, so I'll just speak through it. I hope that's okay. So the first part of the conversation is more about the evolution over the last decade around the data. And I think the last 10 years has been very pivotal in terms of the broader evolution, as we have seen, including, of course, the COVID-related acceleration that we are observing at the moment. So if you go a little bit about 10 years back and start looking at the stage of the data at that point, you would see that data was very much siloed, quite often even within individual applications as part of the desktops and so on. And there were huge efforts required just to bring data into just one repository. Just bringing it together, not even doing anything about it, to say, how do you just put it into one place so you can just store it? So think of it, that was the age of siloed data, if I could use that terminology. And then came a little bit of the time as we went along, where we started realizing that there's just so much learnings that can be done if all the data could be brought together. And we started looking into areas around moving from the database or the data silo or just storage base to the concept of data marts as it sort of came along, right? And brought the data together. And the idea was to crunch a lot of the data together as a whole, still within the same silos to a large extent. But now you're able to bring, let's say, for example, all financial related data into one place, all pharma related data into one place, all enterprise data into one place, and so on and so forth. And that's where the marts sort of evolved. And then came the warehouse. I think again a very pivotal moment in terms of how we started looking at how do we generate insights from the data. And the warehouse was probably the first time when we started bringing data from multiple sources, but also from multiple disciplines as well, and so on, to drive good insights. And that's where many of these CPU and of course GPU came in many years later, but distributed CPUs based applications started getting into the ecosystem, so then allowing us to crunch this huge amount of data to then create applications and insight on top of that. And then finally came the world that we are living in today, is a little bit of this whole data lake, where structured, unstructured, all types of different types of data, that's all coming in. And now we are also able to put it not just in terms of the private cloud, but also in terms of the public cloud, just through APIs and so on. So I feel we have seen this huge journey in terms of data, in terms of the evolution, and also the maturity of the ecosystem that came along with it, whether it's in terms of the wrangling of the data, whether it's in terms of the operations around the data, to going all the way into the intelligence related to the data that we are now able to create. So that is one theme that I wanted to sort of talk about around this data evolution in the last decade that we have seen. The other one is around how data-led analytics has also taken a little bit of this phase and the journey that it has gone through around the stage where data was being a lot more descriptive. And when I say descriptive, I mean that you already have collected the data, and now you're trying to analyze, why did this happen? Or what was the reason behind this? So you're trying to describe the phenomenon of an event which has already happened. Oh, my sales went up or sales went down. Why? or my clinical trial, couldn't get approved. Why? So think of it. In many of these cases, the idea is that you're looking at it and saying it's descriptive because something has happened. Why did it happen? Can you please describe? And that also led to a lot of the diagnostic elements of it as well, to say like, oh, can I diagnose and pinpoint what's happening and so on. And then came a stage where we started being more prescriptive. So can we recommend certain actions on what has happened? So, as I mentioned, like let's say, for example, of sales, the sales has gone down. Can we look at, is it due to lack of better segmentation, better targeting? Is it because the marketing was not able to target the customers better? And so on and so forth, whether my sales rep were not able to do a good job, and so on and so forth. But you're now trying to then say that, okay, can I take certain actions based on those data to then improve my business? And then the stage that we are coming into now, which is more about being a lot more predictive. Actually, even before something has happened, whether in terms of maintenance, whether it's even in terms of the business. I mean, these days, all of us are part of these apps in terms of intelligent investing, and they're already predicting what's going to happen with the stock market the next day or the next week and so on. So we're getting into this stage or this ecosystem where everything is becoming a lot more predictive. So that's again a little bit of the evolution that I think we have sort of seen. And the last one, again, sort of combining those two together, what we are seeing is that the data analytics together, I would say, have been enabling the business, one stage. Then the other stage is where data analytics is being embedded in the business, to a stage now where data is actually becoming the business. So those are the three themes I sort of thought would be helpful to talk about. And the last, which is not a theme, but something like, worth calling out as we are observing in this whole COVID-related acceleration, including in India. I wanted to quote like three examples from three different areas and disciplines. One is in terms of the manufacturing space. Some of you may have heard about the company Havels, the company which makes these electrical equipments and so on. But I was amazed, they're partnered with this company called the BLP, a small startup, and they have the offering called Trust AI. I was reading in one of the manufacturing magazines, and it was intriguing to say how they're using the concept of IoT and cameras and visual analytics to then determine that whether social distancing is being enforced or not. Now imagine if you extend it a little further, can it take care of the security and the audit part, or a little bit like a factory administrator as a whole? I feel the answer is absolutely yes. The other example is around that of Paragon. I mean, it's a footwear brand again in India. And there again, if you see how they've leveraged this IoT-based solution, and they have created this real-time prediction of the entire operational productivity. So they can then tell that at what stage where the goods are being moved, and tying it back to their master inventory real time. Again, these examples, at least I felt really proud about from an Indian context. The other industry that I want to call is about construction. Now, oftentimes it takes a little bit of a backseat. We still feel that it's still very, very manual and still not so much of technology or data has touched that. But again, you'll be surprised again the amount of work that is being done there, including concepts of AR, VR, or drones, or the LiDAR technology. Again, I was very intrigued to read that using 3D technologies, 3D printing technologies, they've already built a house somewhere in Mumbai. This is again a partnership with Sapurji Palonji with a company called Skybase. And they're trying to create this using 3D printer houses. Now, again, imagine the amount of data that's going behind it to crunch all of that to come up what it look like and to generate something that is saved and to be consumed. Again, it's some of these transformation again happening here in India. And closing it all together with the theme, if you look at what government is doing, whether it's to Digital India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Ayushman Bharat, all these are initiatives which will allow us to leapfrog and get into the stage, which will then shape up the next decade for us. So again, definitely the next decade from a data analytics standpoint is absolutely bright. There's a recent study, the last thing I would add on this is recent study where they were quoting about the digitization of SMBs could add close to about USD $216 billion up to in 2024 only, which is just like what, 2 to 3 years from now. So you can just imagine the power that the data analytics could play from where we have started and where the next decade would take us, from a future standpoint, close home here in India. But that's all I had, Professor Pradeep. Back to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. Abhishek, sir. Now, we'd love to hear from you, Tarun Goyal, sir.
Thanks, Professor Pradeep. And first of all, really glad to be on the panel. Thanks for having me to be part of this esteemed panel and opportunity to share my thoughts. So I think since it's an MBA batch, right, I don't want to bore you with too many presentations, but I just put together. You're seeing a lot of PPTs all together, but I'll just put together one slide that I thought will sort of share my thoughts around. But I think Abhishek and Krishan have already shared a lot of thoughts which kind of are on the similar lines. So I'll touch upon few incremental aspects that I feel could be helpful for the group to know about, right? So I think right, if you look at last 10 years, right, I think, and then typically my experience, right, overlapped with that last decade, pretty much well, right? So there has been a significant shift, right, in terms of the whole analytics being adopted in the industry, as well as how it has transformed the industry and how businesses are now looking at analytics. So there has been a significant shift in that. This is due to not many reasons. And I think Abhishek, Krishan, I think we're talking about technology, about data, and about platforms, right? So those all reasons are pretty much there. Apart from that, the technology, the open source adoption, so all of those factors have kind of contributed to this, strong adoption and embedment of analytics over last 10 years, right? So I think one key trend that I have seen, right, when we started out, 14 years back, if I look back, right, analytics used to be a tactical initiative within an organization, right? For example, we were helping out way back in time, helping a retail CPG company to launch cross-sell campaigns. So what we used to do is we will build a predictive model who will identify the best prospect leads who will be likely to buy a product, and then we will email them that target list, right? And then somebody will upload that list into a CRM platform and a campaign will go out, right? So those are the days, right? But now it's become a strategic initiative, right? And then people were still not convinced across the organization, right? There was no voice for analytics. If you look at the board agenda of the analytics, right? Nobody was talking about analytics. There were few departments, right? And I'm talking about majority of the organizations, right? We have the likes of large financial services clients, right? Pharma companies who are leaders in adopting, right? GE, right? How it started, and then American Express, how they are leaders, right? Capital One, some of the names right out there. But now I think what I see is that, and then typically my experience in my company, right? We help majority US clients, right? We see 80 to 70% of clients, right, have got a voice of analytics to at a CXO level. There is a good representation. There is a strategic focus within the organization been recognized, right? And that is being seen, right, in a recent survey, right? If you look at it, right, 40% of almost all digital transformation initiatives that are being done in last few years were related to AI. So that talks a big, seat on the table, I would say, as an analytics professional. Now, as that happened, right, I think Abhishek, pointed to this, right, with COVID, it has significantly accelerated, right? And that's what you've seen, right? Now, COVID did a lot of things, right? I think looking at the positives, right, what happened is organization realized that they have to be efficient, they have to be more leaner, right? They have to, if they have to compete in the market, they have to be more, the processes needs to be more automated. They need to be more agile in terms of their business processes, their strategies, right? So I think there has been a significant increase, in the budgets that AI and ML earlier used to see, in what we used to see earlier 10 years back versus now. In fact, 83% of the companies have increased their AI ML budgets in 2021. So that's a big, I think, call out. And as a services provider, right, in this industry, right, I'm sure, others will agree. We are seeing a huge demand, right? Our teams have grown like, almost doubled in last few years, because we've seen this demand from the clients for AI and ML. So I think that has definitely happened. There is now I think Abhishek alluded to this, right? There is an increased adoption of ML, deep learning and cloud, right? Now what is happening, right? So if you look at it, right, all the things are kind of falling in place. Earlier, if we had to build an analytical model, right, there would be a large team that will set up, right? We'll have different roles in the team, right? We'll have a statistician, we would have a programmer, we would have a data science, professional. But now technology has enabled us to a self-service kind of a model, which has truly enabled the adoption of, advanced ML, deep learning, and then that has all become very easier with the orchestration that is happening on cloud, right? And I think one of the surveys, right, pointed out that which points to the demand, and then maybe the next topic, right, is that the size of AI, right, is expected to be $360 billion, right, by 2028, and this is across industries I'm talking about. This is not a particular industry. So that's I think one trend that I'm seeing right now. To give you an example, right, 10 years back we couldn't have imagined, right, working on call center transcripts. We all have heard that message, right? When we call a call center, oh, we like to record this message for quality purposes, right? But now I think the kind of problems we are solving in the world is that we are able to analyze those voice signals in real time and try to give real-time feedback to the agents of the call center about how they should be addressing the customer problem. Is the customer sentiment becoming negative? Can you do something about it? Have you understand the customer intent of calling to the call center, right? Intent detection, right? So all this is happening. We are able to now look at voice recordings, the call transcripts, and process them in real time, which is like, I'm talking about billions of data points being processed in a real time with a latency of, let's say, 5 microseconds or less, right? So that's the kind of scale and complexity that is coming up now. Sticking on to a few more examples here, right? I think cloud, right? I think Abhishek was talking about how this is all sort of played out, right? Where we have moved from a data warehousing to a data lake now. What cloud also is doing now is that it is giving us the Lego blocks, right? If a company doesn't have an in-house capability, if a business wants to set up tomorrow, an analytics capability, right? The likes of AWS, Azure, all the popular public cloud platforms, they will give you the Lego blocks, which are kind of services which are API driven. Right? All you need is basic skills, technical skills to be able to, play around, orchestrate around those services and build a solution in-house. So what that does is it allows business to scale rapidly. And that's why we are seeing, such a huge demand. The revenues of AWS, Azure, and Google have almost doubled and tripled over last few years, right? So I think there's a huge demand there, which is coming up. One more aspect, right, I wanted to sort of touch upon, right? We've always been talking, and I think somebody mentioned, right, about the siloed nature of analytics, right? Let's say I took the example of call center, right? Now earlier, what used to happen is call center is doing a use case on analytics. They're trying to improve their service quality. They're lowering down their operations cost. Marketing is doing a parallel cross-sell campaign. Imagine now, imagine a scenario, right? You have a customer who is really not happy with your brand, with your services, right? And had a bad experience on a call just now, right? He called up the call center. He was not treated well. His problem was not solved. And one day later, your marketing team tries to reach out to him for why don't you buy more products from us, right? A cross-sell offer. Now that's totally disastrous, right? Because you've not looked at a 360-degree view of the customer, right? So I think that's what it's changing now, right? A business have realized that they need to look at the customer from a 360-degree lens across their value chain. and have a seamless experience for the customer. Now, for that to happen, right, what we've seen is that there is a strong focus from businesses to do end-to-end solutions, right? Earlier, when I started out in my career, right, we used to get projects like, oh, can you build a cross-sell model for me, right? Can you build a claim, detection model for, a healthcare client, right? Now, the clients are coming back and say, can you increase my marketing ROI by 5%? And I'm okay to give you an outcome-based fee for that, a success fee for that. So that's what the whole industry has sort of navigated, and it has all happened because all of the things that Krishnan Abhishek alluded to, right? It's technology, it's the ability, the data becoming more accessible, the cost of storage going down, strong adoption of open source, right? You've got a sort of community support there, right? And there is a strong need for businesses to reduce cost and become more agile and more competitive in market, right? One small point, right? And this is an upcoming trend, right? We all know that McKinsey study that happened, right? It said, oh, data scientist is the sexiest job of 21st century, right? We that's where the term was became popular. Now, if you look at LinkedIn right now, the most popular or the highest job which is in demand is the MLOps engineer, right? In 2021, there were around 400 venture capitalist PE deals were signed just on MLOps, right? These are all 400 companies have started in the last 2 years just offering, MLOps capability. Now, what is MLOps? I've got 50 models. I've got 50 machine learning models. I'm a big company. How do I manage these models? How do I make sure as the data is changing, my models are getting auto-tuned, or, the data drift is being addressed? So all that, right, is taken care as a capability. We're calling it, industry is calling it MLOps or ML engineering. We used to call it model management in our times, right? So I think that's where, I think it's been a significant, if I look at all of this now collectively, right, and think about it, it's a transformational shift, right, which we have seen in last a decade or so. So with that, I'll just, like to close my thoughts here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, I'd like to request Kevin Kaur, sir, to give initial opening remarks.
Thank you, Pradeep. I hope you guys can hear me. Yeah?
Yes.
You're audible.
Great. First of all, again, I mean, thanks a lot for taking out the time to reach out to me and, inviting me to this panel. Great listening. I think I feel almost like a student listening to, Krishnan, Abhishek, and Tarun. So really feel grateful to be a part of this panel, and also a hello to all the other students, who are listening out to this. So as I think Abhishek, Krishnan, and Tarun, spoke about, right? I think they spoke a lot about the journey of analytics, about the journey of data altogether, and what it has done for businesses. I don't think I'll be able to, maybe, do justice to what they've already done. So maybe I'll take a little different, approach to, my talk here. As I said, right, I almost feel like one of the students listening to this talk, somewhere 10 years back, about what data and analytics was, and to be honest, I didn't understand a word about it. And I think that's what's changed, right? Today, I think if I talk about analytics data to someone, they catch it like anything. Just to give you a very funny anecdote, when I entered the field of analytics and when I got my first job, I didn't even know what analytics meant. I was hired as a data analyst, and I felt like, so I come from an engineering background. So I felt like, it's just another coding job maybe. And I didn't even take the time to understand it. I was just so happy that I got the job. And I was like, I'll figure it out later. So I think that talks about how the field of data and analytics has changed over the last 10 years, more than anything, right? About the knowledge and about the visibility of this field overall, and the traction it has received over time. The fact that you guys are sitting doing an analytics course, in a college, speaks volumes about what analytics has done for the world. I think we did not have any courses of analytics or data 10 years back. So I think that itself, really talks volumes about what we have done with analytics and data for businesses more than anything else. So before I kind of, really talk about, the topic in hand, I think, again, what I would really want to first talk about, about my journey in analytics. And I feel why I want to do that is I would also want, people, folks or students to come up with questions later that maybe are more pertaining to, my experience. And I think they'll be able to relate it to it much more, right? So as I said, right, I started off as a computer science engineer, didn't know anything about the world of data and analytics. Thrown into one of the companies. I think most of you might know Musicma, where it was one of the major pure play analytics service companies that started hiring graduates into analytics, and really molded them into data heavy people. Started from there, gained a lot of experience, moved on to bigger MNCs, worked for a lot of Fortune 400, 500 clients, worked with Accenture, worked with McKinsey for those clients. Really understood, when you start out, you generally, are an analyst, are very technical, right? You don't really understand what is the work that you're doing, how does it get translated to a business output or to a KPI, as we were talking about, right? For the business. So I think really learned that over time, working with companies like Accenture and McKinsey. And for the last 3 years, have entered the Indian digital ecosystem, working with Airtel Digital. Understanding almost more than 300 million customers that it touches over India. And I think it's been very enriching just to understand the landscape of customers or people that a country like India provides. I think more than anything else, the kind of data, the kind of analytics, and the way of capturing data in India as compared to places all over the world is very, very different. And just the challenges that come with that, as compared to the challenges that you would face as say for companies that work or digital companies that are there in the US or UK, are very, very different. So that itself has given me a lot of experience into how do you set up analytics and analytics team. What I'll focus on about here is, and I think Krishan, Abhishek, and Tarun spoke a lot about the technical aspect of data, technical aspect of analytics. What does it do for businesses? How does it make an impact? And I think, as I said, right, that they've covered it pretty well. What I can really talk about is, how have businesses evolved over time because of analytics, right? Case in point, if I talk about the telecom system or the telecom sector in India, it's one of the most legacy systems that you can think about. The likes of Airtel, the likes of Reliance, the likes of Vodafone, these are companies that are set in their ways for the last 30 years or 20 years or so. And data is like a shock to them today, to be very honest. Because just to give you an anecdote, right? I think the way they, all of us must be using a mobile network like an Airtel or a Jio, right? And the plans that you see on the Airtel or Jio platform, the pricing that you see on any of them was totally decided manually, for the last 25 years. If you see that, right, it was a bunch of people who were in the system, in the company for 20 years, who would get into a meeting and really just bob their heads about what the pricing should be, by maybe looking at some other companies and coming up, okay, agar uska 250 hai to hum 249 kar dete hain. So and today what's happening is we are building pricing models to decide what kind of number should we put so that the propensity of a customer to convert or buy that pack increases, right? The fact that, and this itself, this example gives you an understanding of how even legacy companies like telecom have really evolved in that understanding, and to really tell you, and that is why companies like Airtel, Reliance really have stood the test of time. If you see the telecom sector, right, it had like more than 10 companies, almost 6 years back, and today it has only 2 giants. And what's the reason behind that? The reason is the fact that they have evolved over time. The businesses have evolved over time and given analytics and data a seat at the center. as I think, Tarun was mentioning, right? The fact that, business decisions or the strategic decisions at the highest level always will have an analytic seat uh, there, I think is the most important shift that has happened. Every decision that is taken at the highest level involves the aspect of data and analytics. So I think that is what, how the field has kind of, grown. And again, one of the examples that, Tarun spoke about is the fact that, we have started to look at customers from a one view mechanism, right? A one view customer, an omni-channel experience, an omni-channel communication. All of that has come into space where we have tried to form a 360-degree view of the customer as compared to before, right? And that has really helped us to target customers better, to understand what customers need, and give them the right thing. So that's majorly about it, right? Looking at how this progresses in the future, right? I think there are two key aspects that I want to kind of just focus on, because and why I focus on them is just because of the crowd that is listening to me here today. So I'll talk about what are the careers in analytics that are kind of sprucing up in the future, and what is one of the most important aspects I feel that is kind of just getting not highlighted as much today. So I'll talk about the second part first, right? So as we spoke about, there's a huge need of data scientists. As McKinsey coined the term a few years back, and now the whole boom of ML and ML ops, etc. Right? But as I'm sure my panel will agree, but as you grow in the field of analytics and start talking to business, I think one of the key roles becomes the roles of a translator. And I feel that is something that a lot of people are missing out on today. What happens is, especially people enter the field of data analytics, obviously become very tech heavy in the first initial years, and I think the missing point where I think even a lot of education systems need to maybe evolve is, how do you talk data to a person who does not know anything about data, right? And I think that communication or that understanding of how do you do that is going to be very, very powerful in the future. Because I think, you'll always have, better data scientists, you'll always have data analysts. But I think today having a great translator who understands the nuances of what's happening in the model and also is able to talk to a data scientist and help him improve, but also is able to go to a CTO of a company and really just in one line explain what he's done, for the metric, is going to be very, very important. As we talk about the elevator pitch, right? The elevator pitch in analytics, I think, is going to be the next big thing for a leader to kind of look at. So I think that's just a point that I want to mention for all the students here, is always also think about that whenever we work with analytics or data, as to how do you communicate, how do you talk about it. I think that is one of the segments I feel generally gets missed out, right? So coming back to the first point that I was talking about is, what is the future, right? And there, pertinent to the audience, I would want to talk about what are the careers that are there. So as I said, right, I'll generally talk about the digital ecosystem, because obviously that is one of the most sprucing out ecosystem in India or abroad. I think Krishan sir talked about Swiggy, Facebook, Instagram, all of that, right? So I'm sure all of you people would love to work in that ecosystem, because that's the most growing ecosystem today. One of the key careers that people look into there, I think are 3-4-fold, right? And I think as students, or even for folks like me, it becomes very important to choose what you want to do, or where is it that you want to spend your most time, or where is it when you get more skilled. So one part is about the data itself, right? Which is the data engineering aspect of it. Is how do you ensure you use structured or unstructured data and clean it and bring it out in a way that it becomes ingestible for someone else to work on it, right? So I think that itself is a big field today. From an engineering perspective, I think it's I feel one of the most one of the aspects or roles where it has been a little neglected in the past, because people would rather want to be a data scientist than a data engineer, because but then I feel really going ahead, that is going to be a very, very key skill set. I'm sure if you talk to any data scientists in the world out there, they'll say building the model is 90% cleaning the data and 10% actually building the model. So the job of a data engineer or building the data layer correctly for any company is going to be a very, very crucial role going ahead. So that is like really one place where you guys can really think about whether this is something that I would want to do, because companies are really looking out for that. The other part is the analytics layer itself, right? Which is the core data analytics that you do for businesses like your day-to-day Swiggy, Zomato, which is a part of it is business analytics, a part of it is product analytics. Product analytics is something where you look at the online products that you have today. You go to the likes of Zomato, Swiggy, Facebook, Instagram. How are consumer behaving on my platform? When are they most when do they have the most propensity to convert into a transactional customer for me? Krishan sir spoke about monthly active users, daily active users. These are terms that are talked about day in and day out in these digital companies today. And and here is where product analytics become very, very powerful. To really understand how do we evolve our products today so that the customer's needs are met over time. So that is one part of the analytics work. The other is the business analytics, right, where we again work with businesses to understand KPIs and movement of KPIs and how we can break them down and solve problems. I think one of the great examples that Tarun gave, right, is a few years back, we always spoke directly about the problem, about what was needed, which is I want to build a model for, say, churn propensity or churn prediction or whatever. As compared to today, the question, what we get to hear is how do I increase my, sales, or how do I, decrease my profit and loss margin, etc. Right? So the evolving of the analytics space or analytics leaders getting business problems to solve rather than direct data issues to be solved, I think is one of the key aspects that all people in the data world need to think about and really learn as well. And there is where one of the key aspects of business problem solving also lies, where it's not just about understanding what is data providing, what can analytics do, but how can you break down problem statements in a way that data can be powerful enough to answer that. Yeah. So I think breaking it down in the right way and really having that good view of a problem statement and understanding the hypothesis, understanding the factors that are there, and then testing those hypotheses using data. I think that kind of layering and understanding is going to be very, very important as you grow in the analytics layer, right? So that's more about the business analytics and really getting your hands dirty about problem solving, etc. And I think the third, the career aspirations that people can have is really the core ML and the data science aspect of it, right? Where again you can be solving business problems, but you can also maybe solving a large component of one business problem, which is, say, churn prediction, where sometimes teams work for months to create a very accurate model so that then it can be used by businesses in the right way to take the right decisions on what kind of money do I put in this offer, what kind of money do I put in this product, etc., right? So that, again, that's a very, very heavy technical domain, technical expertise domain where one needs to be very interested into data science, machine learning, maybe because it's very high coding and technically developed kind of an area. And so that is, again, one area that, if someone wants to go forward with, can really make a lot of impact. So yeah, I mean, those were the two things I wanted to just call out, right? One is being a very important translator, no matter where you are, whether in the data engineering aspect, the data analytics aspect, or the data science aspect, is going to be very, very important. And the second is, as you go forward, what do you want to do is maybe something that, of course, initially is, maybe you wouldn't understand, but going ahead is something that you should always think about, because that will help you cement your place right in the overall data org and help you also kind of grow in the right manner. So again, thanks a lot for giving me the time, and I really hope I can learn a lot from the other panelists here. Plus, I'm really looking forward to questions from all of the people, because I know, having been a student 8-10 years back, that's all we have, questions. So yeah, looking forward to that. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to discuss with the panel members, and we would love to know more about these things. Like as Krishan sir highlighted that we are at present drowning in the data. Like data explosion problem he could bring to the table. He told that one. So because there is wide variety of data, wide volume of data, and wide veracity, whatever, the data is coming like anything. Now, the panelist already highlighted that there is a lack of data scientists also. Right. So then how can we bridge that gap? Because out of that data, we need to create business value, obviously. Right. So how can we bridge that gap?
Yeah, I think, as far as what I understand, actually, I think a need for the data scientist is growing at a higher rate than the actually what is currently available. Even with the addition of the university programs or the new programs being created at the university, and a lot of training institutes actually getting created in the area of data science, AI, and ML. In fact, I also keep getting the calls to join some of those program actually. I don't think there is any magic other than some learning by either by the self or the joining some of the program or introducing the new program. And it's not going to stop today over here actually. I mean, in general, we have to keep ourselves up to date with the trends evolving, whether it is the data science or whether it is the deep learning, machine learning, or any other new technologies which is going to come in the future.
Okay, yeah. So what's your opinion, sir? Tarun Goyal, sir, what do you say?
So I think, I think I totally, agree with, Krishan, that there is a demand and supply gap, right? Despite talent being now widely available, right? There are dedicated, most of the MBA colleges have got dedicated courses now on analytics, right? So, but still the gap remains, right? Now, how do we bridge this gap? I would say I'll just share some perspective how industry is bridging that gap, right? In a way, right? Few trends have started coming up, right? One aspect which we are seeing is that there is a whole focus around citizen data scientist. Can everybody become a self-enabled person to be able to analyze data, right? Not the very complex stuff, right? So I'm not talking about building a very sophisticated deep learning model, right? I'm talking about ability to join data, do basic analysis, find some trend, do some insights, right? So that's where you see the usage of the tools like Tableau, Power BI, is becoming much and much more powerful. So it's drag and drop kind of tools, right, which are coming up. Second thing where it's still, I would say, it's not there at that stage of maturity, but there are companies out there which are saying, you don't have to worry about building a model. You don't have to worry about bringing a data scientist, right? We have taken an industry and a particular use case, and our platform will build 50 models or 100 models and ensemble those models, right, in the backend. We will recommend you the best model. So what they've done is they've automated our jobs. In a way, they're trying to automate some of the way. So it's still very far-fetched, right? Because every business, right, would have a custom need. Revin is in Airtel, right? You would know, right? Airtel Geo would have very different kind of needs. So they would still go for a custom analytics. But just to answer your question, Professor Pradeep, right? Those are two broad areas where I feel, the talent gap in the interim will get bridged somehow, right? The supply side of talent, right? When we say, I think I'm everybody who comes out of a campus, right, of an engineering degree already knows Python, right? These days, right? People are doing courses on R, right? These online courses. I think you've got basic skills available in the people. That's all you need, right? I think, and the rest of the training can happen on the job, right? So these are things which are happening, but the gap, because the demand is so much, right? We thought, all these things will help, help the talent supply side, but the demand surpassed what we anticipated with pre-COVID. So I think that's where I think, but I'll just, maybe like to hear maybe others' thoughts as well. So those are things that I feel could help in this area.
Yeah. Even I can think like this also, like as you told, the technology point of view, the graduates are good enough to handle that one. Maybe the problem, basically the gap is coming because of they do not have that much exposure to deal with the real-time data. That's what I believe. So what the panelist opinion? Love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think now, I mean, when it comes to the data analytics or any machine learning, data is always a problem actually. I think apart from the data, I also somewhere believe a bit of 10th class or 12th class mathematics and statistics is also involved actually here. And I don't think, at least I was never strong in that subject. But somewhere I think apart from the data, we need to strengthen our a few of the concepts, maybe in a different way than what we used to learn earlier actually. Yeah, coming to the data, I think it's in some segment you can find the data actually. And there are some sites which offer the data, but you are right actually that large amount of data, it's a bit difficult to find. But there are techniques like generating the data by simulation, writing small programs, and which represents the problem we are trying to address. So those are some of the techniques I think we can adopt.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense also. And then, so like you talked about this analytics seed, Ravin sir. You talked about analytics seed. For example, if there is a company, there is a startup which wants to go with this analytics seed themselves. Like, what do you suggest so that their business also will take strategic direction or different, what is it called, fruitful direction? What do you say?
Got it. See, it's very important to understand the journey of analytics maturity in any company, right, or any organization. What I mean by that is when you look at how I think about analytics maturity is where is the org or the product in terms of utilizing their data well, right? Are they at the initial stage of being able to just play with data and get some key insights out? Are they at a stage where they have automated most of the metrics, their KPIs that they want to see, and they see at a daily level, they are able to double click well, they are able to understand why the metrics are going up and down, etc. And maybe the later levels are where almost most of the stuff that you would want to see at a daily level is automated, and we are working more on bespoke analysis and solving problem statements, and also analytics is a key part of driving KPIs. So I think it's very important to understand where is the company today in terms of the analytics maturity ladder, and really carving that out or carving that journey out for the company is going to be very, very important. For example, when I started with Airtel around 3 years back, we were at the very beginning, right, where people had very specific data questions, and they were looking for people to just answer those questions, and that's all. They did not think about what can data do for their business, what can data or analytics do for business KPIs and improvements in KPIs and digital growth and business growth, nothing like that. But the evolution has happened, right? And the evolution happens when you recognize where are you in the whole journey. So I think to bridge that gap or to get the seat at the analytics or the business table, it's important that you traverse that journey. You can't directly kind of get a seat if your basic questions are not getting answered on a daily level. So I think in these companies, what has become very important is to set up your analytics processes, to set up your automation processes, to set up your teams and the people that you're hiring in a very, very good way, so that the analytics maturity can be traversed very quickly. As an example, what we had done in Airtel was at a team level or at a business level, we used to always every month, track where are we on the maturity scale. And how we would do that is maybe we would directly go to the people working on analytics and ask them, what are you working on today? Are these questions that are very direct data questions, which is why has this KPI gone down, when which customer is a customer who is lying in a higher ARPU segment, etc. Or are you in the automation phase where you've tried, what questions to answer, you're just automating them, generating dashboards to Tableau, etc., so that answers can directly go to the top level management every day? Or have you automated everything that was needed and now you're really solving business problems where you now have an understanding of what's happening with my business daily, and you don't need to really worry about that a lot, but now you really have a seat at the table and you now understand, okay, let me tell you what you need to do to improve this metric. Let me tell you what are the gaps to improve the funnel. Let me tell you what are the important things that need to do. And a great example of that is one of the biggest challenges businesses face today is with business prioritization. Is there are 6 features that I can take live in the next 2 months. What should I prioritize? Which one should I go with? And there is where analytics gets a very, very important seat. They come up to analytics, they talk to them and they ask, tell me, what is the impact of each 6 of them at a measurable scale and at a comparable scale? Not obviously, you cannot have different metrics for everything, because otherwise that doesn't become comparable. But at a comparable scale, how do you compare all these different 6 features or product capabilities that I would want to come up with, so that I can very distinctly say that yes, these are the 3 that I want to take up first, because obviously they have a much higher business impact. So that is the biggest example I can give you of how analytics gets a seat at the table in business discussions. But again, it's very important to traverse that journey first.
Okay, Abhishek sir, like you talked about descriptive analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics. Like in future, any other type of analytics will come, sir? Like already I heard cognitive analytics is into boom. That's what I heard the word. So can the panel throw some light upon those next coming analytics types?
For sure, and there are multiple varieties of it. I often call them as augmented analytics, one umbrella to define. But some of them a little bit at the edge. Probably one thing that comes to my mind, the concept of edge computing or federated learning, directly on your devices. If you're wearing a Fitbit watch or Apple Watch or any of the watch, can analytics happen right then and there based on the data that you're getting? Like for example, if you would have heard stories about how Apple's devices have saved people's life when somebody had an accident or somebody had a heart attack. But imagine what's happening. It's all happening at the node. It's not that the data is going to a central server processing by the time the person would be gone. So a little bit of that aspect is one. The second is also in terms of a lot more visual. So whether concepts of AR, VR, or this concept of you're trying to play with the data real time through all these graphical based engines. That is the other one I can think of, which is more visual analytics than past. The third one, which is one of my personal favorites, is that of a lot more narrative. So this idea of NLP and NLG then driving through the storytelling, which is more easily consumable to the human beings. That's again a very one and close to my heart. That how can you go, and there are all examples like if you look at what Google is doing with BERT or even with Lambda kind of frameworks now, they're just changing the whole paradigm in terms of NLP and NLG. They're bringing it more as conversational than before. So that's a third one I can think of. And the fourth one I also feel, which is more in terms of being just more pervasive and more prevalent. If you look at what 5G is going to do, and if you combine concepts of IoT along with it, I feel it's just going to democratize it even more further, where analytics is not just going to remain in terms of just the boardrooms or something running only on the cloud. I guess we're going to run all of the analytics in our daily lives as well. It's just amazing when you look at the amount of data when we are generating even in our own personal lives, all the way in terms of the entire month. If you go back and look at the amount of things you just ordered online, you'll be just surprised. whether it's Amazon or Flipkart or Big Basket or any of these online channels, you will be really surprised. Imagine if you can do a little more analytics on top of that to even define what is your own spending habits. What do you want to do in terms of any saving strategies and so on? Something very subtle. In the past, people used to write all those in notebooks and so on. So I think I often call it more personalized from that standpoint, that it's going to be more for what does it mean for me, my mind kind of thing. And in this case, not just for business, but for my own personalized use cases. But those are 3 or 4 themes I can think of, Professor Pradeep. I'm sure fellow panelists can add more to it.
Yeah. Tarun sir, you focused on the strong analytical solution from end to end. That's what your main intention or your main focus. So, like, what could be the major challenge in this end-to-end analytics solution nowadays, and how that can be addressed in future? What is your opinion about this?
Sure.
Even augmented analytics can play a role here in this scenario.
Yeah. Sure. So when I talked about that, okay, what is end-to-end analytics, right? So traditionally, analytics has been, in silos, right? Either you do one use case in a company, then, there is another department which is doing use cases, right? Now, as organizations are doing it at scale, let's say, take a, health insurance company, right? Now, a health insurance company is trying to do multiple things, right? It is trying to market to new customers. It is trying to underwrite more effectively, identify risk patterns better, reduce the claims which they're getting, right? Reduce fraud, right? And operationalize, reduce their operations cost. So what I meant by end-to-end is, as analytics is now helping organization in decision making, right? It is not about, oh, we did something, it was a college-based project, right? We saw the output and now it is lying in dumps. Every day, some business stakeholder is making a decision based on what analytics output is being produced, right? So it is live and running in production, just like your IT systems, right? Now, when that happens, right, there are few challenges that come to light, right? You need, for those analytics models, to get the data, which is their input, regularly and consistently. So there has to be data pipelines which needs to be built, which will, source the data from your IT systems, from different systems, feed it into the model in an automated manner. You can't do it manually, because, the prediction is happening every day. My campaign manager is targeting customers every day, right? So I need to give him the best leads every day, right? So there has to be a data engineering component, which I think panelists alluded to earlier. Now, when you have 2 models or 3 models, it's easily manageable in an ad hoc manner. When we're talking about an organization which has got 100 models running, when which model is depleting. So a model is not permanent, right? Its performance will degrade as the data changes, as the customer changes, as the business mix changes. You acquired a new company. Now, the customers of the acquired company are also your customers. Your business has changed. The model no longer is, going to hold good on that, data set as well. So now, when you're managing 100 models, you need to have a process in place to be able to, in an automated manner, be able to track performance of these models. These models should be trained, when are they supposed to be going for the next refresh, right? Who's going to take the decision, right? So with scale brings more complexities, when we're talking about end-to-end solutions, because now analytics is no longer a one-off case. My CXO is looking at, my performance of my models on a day-to-day basis, right? So these are the challenges, right? Having the right data engineering, components in place, having, the operationalization of the models, right? The automation of the models, and who is going to take the accountability of this entire landscape, this entire frame or capability within a company. That's where you see now roles like Chief Analytics Officer, Chief Data Officer. These titles are coming up. Why are they coming up? Because as I said, right, it was not a significant scale earlier. Now it is, right? So those are the challenges. And then how do you address it? Of course, you've got technologies out there, right? You can, there are platforms out there which can completely automate. And, there's a UI based interface that you can get where you can manage 50, models. So your data scientists who are supposed to be looking at the data, producing insights, are not doing the model management work. They are focusing on the core activity of generating insights, right? So that's another challenge that comes with scale, right? What to mention that, what is happening in industry right now is that data scientists end up doing everything. They're pulling the data, they're building the model, doing the statistical analysis, doing the presentation, and oh, my model code did not run last night, right? The presentation did not go out, right? So now that's a different job. So as you see, Professor Pradeep, the job roles are also changing basis which, right? There used to be statistical analysts way back, right? 15 years back. Now there is data scientist came up. Now there is data engineer title came up, right? There is a separate job function. You've got an ML ops engineer now who is going to just take care of running the models, operationalizing, building ML pipe. So that's how the industry is also evolving, Professor Pradeep, to sort of, help with those challenges. But yes, with end-to-end scale, there is a challenge that companies need to address, and the companies who address it better, right, will be more competitive, right, will be able to deliver more value in terms of ROI from these use cases.
Yeah. So before opening,
happy to hear others' thoughts on this.
Yeah. Before opening floor to the audience, so I request all the panelists, each one please take 1 minute each, and please talk about future of the business analytics. It should be in suggestible manner to the audience, please. Yeah. So your recommendations. We'd love to hear from you, sir. Again, we'll start from Krishan, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pradeep, actually. So I come now basically from the engineering background, where we develop the products to suit the EPCs, engineering and procurement companies, and the large plant operators like Reliance and other multinational organization, basically from the engineering field. So mostly we deal with the data which is engineering in nature actually, and something like machines on the shop floor, and emitting the sensor data and so on actually. And so we do analytics and the model preparation using those sensor data with the assumption of what are the current performance of those machines actually, and some kind of a predictive maintenance to be done in advance, and when they are likely to go and fail kind of a thing. So I think our analytics, this is one segment actually, and then I think another segment where we are trying to create kind of a deep learning models where we can go ahead and digitize the drawings and which are created say 1950s or the 60s actually, which don't have the currently digital representation. And also, I think earlier you would build the this plants without having the 3D model actually. So those are the data now we are dealing with actually, which is mostly engineering and 3D and those kind of things. Yes, but I think all this engineering data etc. has no meaning unless there's some business value can be derive out of it actually. So somebody who is understanding this data and definitely converting into the business, where we say as the business translators actually, will definitely play a very good role from our industry point of view.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Now, I'd like to go to Abhishek, sir. Your remarks, please.
So I'll end with, I think, around the future analytics, probably 2 or 3 themes that come to my mind, based on what I also heard from my fellow panelists today. The first one, again, one of my personal favorite, which is about getting more humanized. So I think we'll run into this arena where, and we already are, I should say, getting into that, where the focus will shift a lot more from the tech to about the human in the loop. So at the end of the day, whatever we are creating is for us as human beings. So how do you create the customer delight? And there are always concepts like, the segment of one, or leverage, behavioral analytics to create customer 360, multi-channel and whatnot. So there's always stuff around that. So that's not going away. But at the end of the day, it's about the human in the loop. So that's one big change I do see, that how do you keep the person in the center, whether it's as a customer, whether it's as a patient, whether it's as an end user, whatever your use case is, it depends on that human being in the middle. The other big change I see is around moving from the volume to quality and continuity. So this initial stages have been all about volume. Let me just get data wherever they are. Data is the new oil. So let's focus more on the data. But now it's all about quality, because whether you do IIM model, whether you create BI insights, whether you create reports, it's all about the quality of the data. And then the big change is going to see is around the continuity part as well. So whether concepts like model drift, or through concepts like A/B testing, or through the DR becoming more prevalent in the AIML space as well. So I think that's the other trend we are seeing from our future. The next one I feel is around the compliance part, which often is not spoken as much. But as we are seeing with all these localization laws coming in, again, as we work globally, whether it's European-based laws, whether it's China localization law, or even India now coming up with its own localization law. But this compliance part is going to become more and more key. And we are soon getting to a stage where there's going to be people owning the data. So how do we live in that ecosystem? And how do we take care of things like getting beyond the black box? So I can tell you that why you did not get the loan. Of course, customers are going to question. So that's why the explainability part along with compliance is also going to become very important. And the last bit, which we touched upon as a panel as well multiple times, is about this democratization and commoditization of data analytics as well. So getting into creating the value and impact, but also for every segment of the society. So it could be for a business analyst, could be for data engineer, of course, but could be for a business analyst, but also for a business user, but at the end for the overall economy and the society as well. So you're going to see increased democratization and the commoditization of that data analytics as well as we are looking towards the future. So those are 3 or 4 themes that come to mind as we look to the future.
Yeah, over to you, Tarun Goyal, sir.
Sure. So I think Abhishek, right, Krishnan, very well articulated, right, almost all the where the future. I'll just take a different, taking a cue from even on the audience, right. I think what it holds for you guys, right, as you look to make a career in analytics, right. If you're interested, right. So I think people who are starting right now and people who did start, let's say 10, 15 years back, right, have a strong advantage, right? So I would say, the Lego blocks or the key components for you to learn analytics, right, are all available out there, right? It's not going to be, the future is not going to be from a practitioner standpoint, from an analytics practitioner standpoint. It's not going to be about, who builds the best model, right? Or who can, who is good at programming, right? Analytics itself is it's a multidisciplinary field. You've got industry knowledge, which is required, the sector that you're working for, the function that you're working for, it's marketing, it's sales, or it's operations. You need to know statistics, you need to know a bit of data, right? You need to know some tool programming language. And then what Revin pointed out, right? Storytelling, right? It's the whole consulting angle, the ability to connect the dots, right? So it's becoming more and more integrated. It's not a single competency that will determine success of an analytics practitioner. Even after 15 years, right, 14 years and counting, right, I have a tough time, right. I'm reading almost daily basis to keep myself relevant in the industry, right. So I think it's very important to have that curiosity if you're looking for a career in analytics. Obviously, right, there are other areas as well. But this is a very promising field, right? From that standpoint. From an industry standpoint, I think just few incremental points that I see, right? In terms of right, there is this whole thing around whether to build in-house or to completely leverage the capabilities which are out there. Right now, if you look at the organizations right now, the businesses right now, they're somewhere in the mix. They're saying, oh, 30%, let's leverage what is out there. We will also try to build a capability in-house. Every organization or business will have a dedicated in-house analytics team, right? Is that the model going forward? Because, as things are becoming so much automated and, integrated, right? There could be a pattern wherein, there is much more business sense from a cost perspective to do it significantly in an outsourced model, right? What I mean to say is that, and I'm not, linked to AWS or Azure in any way, but, you've got all the capabilities in AWS right now. The SageMaker, which can do all the model orchestration. You've got AWS, you can build the data lakes there in the platform, right? Do you leverage that kind of a platform or you build from scratch, right? So I think those are things which needs to be seen. My sense is it will become a more of an orchestration play. It will be like you have a lot of Lego blocks available to you, right? You don't have to build individual Lego pieces. It'll be given to you. You orchestrate the solution and build the best possible solution. So I think, and then the third element, right? I think, Abhishek alluded, but again, right now, everybody is investing as a business in analytics with a promise that it's going to deliver value, right? Soon, the P&L, there'll be a huge ROI focus, which will come in, right? Okay, this much investment, you've got 50 data scientists, right? How much value did they generate? As of now, they're doing the cool stuff, right? So people have started asking questions, but I'm saying the value or the outcome that analytics can deliver to businesses is going to become the core focus, because the investments are going to, sort of the weights will tilt, right, on the weighing scale in terms of the investments that have been made. So I think those are two things that I wanted to sort of touch base on the industry side of things. So, thanks.
Okay, sir. Over to you, sir. Ravid, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I think Tarun, Abhishek, Krishnan all had great points, right? So I'll not delve a lot into the future. I think they've covered it pretty well. I'll actually echo what they said, and I'll kind of keep it brief. I completely agree to the last point that Tarun made, right? I think the most important point going ahead is to be the validation of analytics or data overall. What is happening is, it's, to be very honest, even if analytics has grown like it has, in a lot of places it's still what they call a fad, right? We need to have an analytics team, we need to have an in-house analytics. And what is happening over time is people have slightly started to nudge and ask questions about the value that analytics is starting to bring. And I think in the next 10 years, that is going to blow up like anything. Where, as Tarun mentioned, more and more questions are going to come on what is the impact, or to be very more specific, what is the business impact at a KPI level that my team of, say, 20 data scientists has brought to the table. I think that is going to be a key challenge for analytics and data going ahead to really solve. And what will actually, to be very honest, make it even more difficult is actually the data democratization, because as data gets democratized, a product manager can also do the job of a data scientist, a business manager can also do a job of a data analyst, and so on and so forth. So the fact that what do you bring to the table as compared to the run-of-the-mill product manager or the run-of-the-mill business head is going to be the key aspect. And really carving that niche out, apart from building the team and ensuring how you have a good system and we are doing well for the company, it's going to be very important for us to be very, very business and metric focused, and ensure that we deliver the output as we grow incrementally all the time. For businesses and for products. I think that is going to be very, very important.
Okay. Thank you all the panelists for your insightful. I think I felt like I can listen to you people all the day. Yeah, now I'd like to leave the floor to the Bytes Club to take over Q&A session. Over to you, Bytes Club.
Yes, it's very grateful to listen to all the panelists. So I request the students to come up with your questions. The floor is open. Yes, Devanshi, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone on the panel for such an interesting session. My question is, data analytics has helped businesses evolve and generate profits, but we can see that most of the small businesses and MSMEs still have not been able to implement and make the best use of it. So what are your thoughts on how to make it more accessible and affordable for them as well?
I can start. Yeah. See, I think if I talk about India in perspective, right? Even as I work with Airtel, we have tried to touch the digital ecosystem of India with a lot of small MSMEs and small companies over the space. And I think the biggest challenge, if I can speak about in this space, is other challenges with capturing the right data more than anything else. I think we all have the tools today, and obviously open source, to kind of analyze and do data science and churn out insights. But a lot of times what has happened is you get the insights and then you get to know that the data itself wasn't right. So, and that's, I think, a major challenge with, smaller businesses in India. Because if you look at, so if you go to the run-of-the-mill kirana wala today, even he does some bit of analytics to understand what should he sell and what should he keep in his inventory or not, right? But the fact that the MSMEs in going ahead need to kind of really capture data digitally and capture it well and capture it correctly is today the major challenge. And I do feel that at least for now we have not kind of solved that, at least at our nation, at the level of our nation, to kind of help those customers or those businesses to really make an impact using analytics. So we have the tools that are there, but I don't think we have the data yet to kind of make an impact.
And if I can also add to it, and just see it a little bit as in terms of our evolution. And every country, every business sort of has always gone through it. I still feel that we're in a little bit of the stage where we're still creating the digital backbone, if you can use the term. And I'm talking about the rural, India as well, as we call Bharat here. It's also from that standpoint. But it's all happening right now as we speak. And if you just look at the QR code as example, and I'm just amazed. You go to so far-flung areas. And one of these days I was traveling in a local train, and you have the Mumphali wala having a QR code. I mean, just imagine, just 5 years ago, you can't think of that. So just keep that perspective in mind. The second thing, I also feel that there are these channels which I see that are very fruitful. Of course, one is very much to the government, like all these panchayat and everything else being connected and whatnot. But even many of these private players, you go to these private banks, and any of them have these branches in the far-flung areas. Just traveling. And the way you see ATMs or even banks, just imagine, they've got to have internet there. They've got to have the digital backbone there. Somehow they have figured it out. So I think it's a little bit of that phase where, apart from the tier 1, tier 2, perhaps tier 3 as well, the rest of the ecosystem is still getting connected. So that's one. The second I also feel is a little bit of this platform effect that we are seeing, whether it's kirana.com or this what Reliance is doing, with the whole GeoMart and so on, trying to connect these local players and so on. I mean, again, that's again on the move. That is other reason why we see the change, because they're creating these platforms, so you don't have to build everything. You just plug into the ecosystem. And the third one I also call is a little bit of a demand and supply, which is more about we as customers are going and demanding. Many of us have come from smaller places as well, where we have grown up. When we go back to those places, many times we demand that. Hey, you don't have this, can you bring? I also feel that demand and supply is going to force us to that. And because we've gotten used to that convenience and ease. One good example is the milk wala, right? I mean, the doodh wala and you just go to the website, doodhwala.com, and Milkman, Country Delight, the dime a dozen these days. I mean, just 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you'll go to the Milkman and you'll see all the buffaloes and all that standing, and somebody's bringing it in the canisters. We have come a long way. But I guess what I'm saying is the way to look at it is it's a little bit of an evolution. I feel we haven't crossed that pivotal stage yet, but we are much, much further ahead in the journey. And we have a very good advantage that we don't have too much of legacy. Believe me, if you just go to rural areas, leave the metros like New York and California and so on, just go towards, often it's called the red belt in US, just in the middle states, you'll be surprised. Because the quality of internet, the kind of systems they are using is still anarchic. You'll be surprised. It's like, wow, India is so much better. But all I'm saying is we have a very unique advantage. We are on the move. Maybe 5 years down the road, we won't have this question.
Yeah, I think I agree with whatever has been echoed over here. Especially, I think technology is evolving actually. And if you think about the mobile users, how many were there maybe 5 years before or 10 years before? But nowadays, I think if you go to even villages also, they are having the smartphones. So I think since I think technology is reaching to the hands of the people beyond the metro cities and so on, and at the same time, I think it is going to become cheaper and cheaper. QR code is one of the thing, great example. I mean, you can find it at any telewala also actually, and especially I enjoyed that. So I think more and more segment of societies are going to get connected with this digital evolution. We are doing it.
Yeah, I'll just like to, I think Abhishek, right, kind of covered it all, right. One just small example I'll give, right. One project study we did with World Bank, right, when I was with EY. If you look at MSMEs, right, 34% of the GDP, right, it's there with MSMEs, right. And I think Revin knows it too well, right. Our telecom universality is almost 99% of the country has got a telecom connection. One of the things which is more of a regulatory struggle with RBI and the whole credit laws, the biggest challenge with MSMEs, if you see, is access to credit, right? Because they do not have a credit history. So, and they do not have a bureau file. They do not have a bureau record. So they don't get access to credit, right? That's where I think some of the fintechs are coming into the play. But one of the projects that we did earlier was that, can we, in some of the countries, right, in African countries and in some of the APAC countries, telco data has been predictive of your credit risk behavior. So your postpaid and your prepaid data history, right, will tell you, okay, whether my MSME will default on a loan or not, right? Let's say I'm not returning calls, right? Those kind of patterns, right? So I think in a lot of the countries, telco data is primarily being used to predict credit risk MSME carries. And if you look at from an India context, right, you have that data available. The challenge is in India, that's a regulatory struggle, right? So I think, World Bank and the likes of IFC are working with RBI now to say, okay, can we look at alternative data, right? What Abhishek was saying around, the QR, data which is being generated, your entire cash flows are being captured right now, right? Can that be leveraged as a proxy for, predicting credit risk? I will just add that example there.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
Karunakar, you can go ahead.
Sir, I have two questions. One, despite having we have grown in the data science sector, but still when COVID struck, we had initial hiccups. So what lessons can we learn and what are being implemented so that this couldn't be repeated soon if such kind of pandemic hits us? And next question is a bit diversified from the previous one. How can a small businesses like Kirana stores leverage data analytics? Because they hyperlocal startups like Zepto and all, they have been using the data analytics to reach out to the audience. Same thing, how can Kirana stores match to that scale?
Right. So I think I can take your first question. So I think your question is around, okay, we saw COVID, we struggled with it, right? How is it going to help us if something like that happens, right? So I think, see, if it's a similar, so what I feel, right? Humans are resilient, right? Overall, so we have our learnings. If it's a similar kind of a viral pandemic, right, or a similar nature of pandemic, right, I think both businesses, are very well placed to be able to manage that. And then a good indicator of that is, you see how business managed the second wave in India, right? And then the third wave in India, obviously there are challenges with certain businesses because the curbs don't allow them to function at all, right? So that's a different topic altogether. But if a similar nature of pandemic happens again, I think businesses have transformed, or at least now it's a known risk, right, that they have sort of planned for. And then businesses who do not learn from it will not exist. So that's also a clear point there, right? So now if we're talking about a different nature of pandemic, or not a pandemic, but let's say a disaster, right? A nature disaster. I don't know, right? That's going to be a different learning for all of us, right? So if it's a mass flooding that happens, let's say, right, because of the sustainability challenges, right? How do we plan to our data centers are still physical. They're replicated across the globe, but they're still physical, right? So if there is mass flooding that happens in a large geographic area, we'll still struggle, right? Everything collapses. So I think if it's a similar pandemic, just to answer your question, Karnakar, right? We are very well placed. If it's a different nature, then we'll have our learning.
I think adding on to Tarun's point, what has happened is not only analytics, but overall businesses now, every business plan has a contingency plan these days. And that's, I think, brought about by, COVID. The fact that you might need to completely kind of redefine your plan, be it your execution, be it your strategy, and do that almost swiftly, as swiftly as possible. Just as an example, I know that as soon as all businesses in India or across India basically start to look at rising waves and come up with new strategies, and then redefine their priorities for the next month, redefine what their strategies, redefine their goals, all of that, right? So I think the fact that we can sense that much better today, and we have that plan in place with the broader goals that we kind of are aligned with. I think that is the major change that is brought about, and I do feel that we are much better prepared. And again, adding on to Tarun's point, that that contingency plan is more about if I have an execution plan where I need 20 offline, say for example, Kirana stores to work with me. What happens if Kirana stores don't exist anymore? So those are questions that now businesses have started to ask, because COVID has hit them like anything, and they understand that nothing is going to be nothing. We should take nothing for granted. If you want to scale at the level you want to. So I think that question, the kind of questions people are asking, the kind of plans people are making, the contingencies they have in place with every business plan, I think that has really evolved. Before, and the thinking of what kind of contingency we should have, I think that has evolved a lot after COVID.
Yeah, I think I just want to give a different view on this subject. It may not be the answer to your question actually. While businesses have say evolved and they have learned how to live with the COVID, okay. But I think I have some friends from the medical fields. And so when this COVID hit, right, so everybody was very curious, what's happening, and people are going to die or something like that. I was very curious to understand, say how much time does it take to develop the say vaccine and so on. Generally, it takes I think around 10 years or something like that. But we brought it down to the 2 years. That's a remarkable achievement. Then I was also trying to understand from them, sir, what is missing? Why we have to even take 2 years? Especially this is such a human crisis is going on around the world, So I think what they mentioned was I think where are we investing in the innovation when it comes to we are learning only when something is hitting us bad. So I would just wanted to bring that point over here that we can say put some innovation in the medical field so that we don't even hit this kind of a crisis.
I'll take the second one, so just switching gears. So the second part of the question, and at least the way I understood it was that how does the local kirana stores compare perhaps with the larger behemoths and so on, and so on. So from that standpoint, as I mentioned in one of the previous questions, is to leverage some of these platforms as well. So don't try to do it all alone. There's a lot of capabilities already out there. And there's so many of these e-commerce platforms, kirana.com or Instant Mojo, Coutloot. I mean, there are dime a dozen right now. Figure out which works best for you, but also be aware that that the old model, which was more access driven, you can run out of your house and go to the next shop and get something, that is not going to be the major differentiator going forward. Your major differentiator is going to be more in terms of the customer centricity and the customer delight. How best you know your customers, which is also around what do they need in this, probably colony or region and so on. How do you know? Do you know them by name and so on? I think that's what's going to be the differentiator. But to say that just because I have a good location, everybody's just going to come to me, I think no. I mean, just with a click of a button and there's local delivery companies now out there, I think that value prop advantage is certainly gone. So I think that's what I would say. Leverage what exists. Don't try to create your own. There are a bunch of these platforms. So that's one. And the second is try to create your own identity, your own value prop. What are you selling? What do your customers want? What do you want to be known for? How do you create the customer delight? Those are things you want to focus on more and more.
Thank you, sir. Sanskriti, you can go ahead with your question.
So since we are aspiring managers, a lot of us look at how decision making works. So we see that today a lot of the decisions are data driven in the companies, and companies have become very dependent on data. So how prudent it is for companies to put this high reliance on data while making decisions, and should intuitive synthesis be a part of making decisions?
I mean, I think when we say we are making the decision, data-driven decision for the benefits of the business, I think that is a good point to consider. But somewhere I strongly believe, right? I think we are all a human being, right? Somewhere we need to bring the human touch, actually. So. Right. So sometimes I hear data are used for the various purposes, whether we are judging the performance of the individuals and so on. But somewhere I believe, I think there has to be a human touch on top of the analysis we do, which is based upon the data.
Absolutely agreed, sir. Since we are running short on time, can we go on to Tanmay's question, please?
Yeah, so my question, I actually wanted to get a view, like what is your view on one of the recent spats that was going on, that is actually going on. If you see the stance that Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg took are totally different stance. Whereas one is very cautious about AI, and the other is like very much open to which direction it is going. And if you see, a lot of companies like Google have become companies like AI first companies. That is the vision now. So what do you think should be the approach to go ahead with AI, given that even the stalwarts of the big tech industry can't agree on a single point?
For this question, I'll take a stab at it. It comes up often in panel discussions. So I think there are two extremes, the way you look at it, right? And that comes with any kind of technology. And then going all the way from the industry revolution when we started off, or agricultural revolution before that, every time people have always talked about what could happen if things go wrong. And that is always true. There's always a part to that. But I think the idea is, how do you create it in a way that you can maximize the benefit for human society. I think that's the way to look at it. Now, of course, there's a whole extreme about AGI based and robots taking over the whole world and so on. Now, we'll all have to see how much further we are. I mean, again, the Turing test keeps getting better and better, and other companies, agencies are crossing that. But that's again something to be seen. But if you look at history, what it has told us, that it has not happened yet. As human beings, we are a lot more agile and versatile. We'll always find a way to tame the technology. At least that's my perspective on it. But they are always too extreme with any technology. There's always a good side and always a bad side. It's all about how do you tame the technology and leverage the best out of it. And that's where the government compliances and thresholds and constraints, all of that are going to come in and try to help us out in this area.
Thank you so much, sir. Does that answer your question, Tanmay?
Yeah, sure.
So I would like to go ahead and ask Shubhangi to conclude the session.
Thank you, Nandini.
Shubhangi.
First and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed panelists, as well as our panel moderator, Dr. Pradeep Darabara sir, for joining us today and sharing such enriching thoughts. I'm sure that our participants will take a lot from today's session. Now, we would want to express our gratitude to all the distinguished panelists who have joined us today. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Krishan Meghani, sir. Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts on data-driven world and how it is impacting our life and how it will impact our future. Next, I would like to thank Mr. Abhishek Tirugunet, sir. Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts on the journey of data and analytics from descriptive data to predictive data and how AI and emerging technologies are impacting the industry. Next, I would like to thank Tarun Goyal, sir, for sharing his thoughts on shift about how analytics has been adopted in industry from a tactical initiative to strategic need. And last, I would like to thank Mr. Revan Kewal, sir, for sharing his personal journey in analytics field about how businesses have evolved over time. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time from your busy schedule and joining us on this Saturday evening. We are really grateful to all of you for being here. We would love to host you at our campus in Shillong very soon. Thanks once again. That would be all from our side.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, bye all.